Let's bring it to the here and now, to these negotiations. There's been a lot of discord. It's been decades of discord over this issue. What's Mediators Beyond Borders doing here?
Basically what we are doing is urging the parties to include a mediation provision in their treaty, in the whatever agreement comes out of this process. So far we have not been successful in convincing the parties to do this, but we very deeply believe, and really because we work with conflicts all the time, we know as professionals that the treaty, whatever it may happen to be, as a protocol or as an annex or an agreement or whatever it might happen to be, simply cannot succeed without mechanisms for resolving disputes that will be inevitable in the course of implementing it. You can see them here in the way that the whole operation is being set up. If a mediator were to design this, we would design it in a very different way.
How's that?
Basically, the very first thing that we would do is talk about the design, talk about the process, and develop a mechanism that is voluntary and agreed upon by consensus, and involve people in the process whose support is essential for making it work, which doesn't just mean the national governments. It means civil society as well.
Well, can you just say how that's different from what was actually done in this negotiating process here?
I think we had the best example of it just within the last 24 hours with the leaking of this memorandum from the Danish government and the accusation on the part of the G77 that this is far from transparency. And the difficulty is the process that is being used now is one in which there are public statements being made in the halls that sound perfectly good, and behind the scenes negotiations are taking place with a kind of hardball attitude and approach that are going to inevitably result in increased resistance and hostility by some people and may result in a walkout. We haven't got time to engage in this kind of activity. This is a serious, difficult, significant problem that we're facing. So there are a variety of methods for avoiding that, really hundreds of them, and we use these all the time.
Could you give us one example?
Sure. Within the field of conflict resolution, there's a mechanism that is called conflict resolution systems design. And basically what it looks at is conflict as a system. And then it looks at ways of dismantling that system, of identifying, for example, what are the early warning signs that conflict is escalating, looking for...
We're having a little, it's not conflict behind us, don't worry, something's going on back there.
Yeah, it is. So then what we want to do is we want to look for loopbacks into negotiation and problem solving. This is a place where I think the process here has experienced a kind of setback. What we know from conflict resolution is there's a very, very simple mechanism that happens in negotiation or problem solving, and it's the separation of positions from interests. So a position is what you want, an interest is the reason why you want it. Nobody disagrees over the reasons. They disagree over the positions. So what we do is we shift the conversation that is getting stuck by moving it at a 90-degree angle to the one that people are currently having.
I can imagine having that sort of negotiation, that sort of process, conflict resolution process with my wife. How could it be done on such a massive scale with, 192 countries, thousands of delegates, and, all, broken up into different blocks and parties and groups? How can you do that on that scale?
If I were to do it, myself, I would bring in thousands of mediators. And we would have an accordion type of process in which every meeting had a mediator present at it, so that whatever is said at that meeting, there's a way of getting it transmitted to somebody else. What happens now, and it happens every time there's a private meeting of anybody, in a family, in a company, in a government, in a community. People say things in the meeting that do not get transmitted or said to the other side. And that cheats them out of an opportunity to learn from those critiques.
So a meeting like this, which is broadcast to everyone, it can be small enough, there's only 3 of us here, to say things that are quite subtle and deep. And at the same time, it's open to everyone, so it's completely transparent.
Because what we do is we'll take a large group like this and we'll break up into small groups. Within small groups, if you have a representative of the umbrella group and the G77 and a whole bunch of...
The umbrella group being one of the different blocks of negotiating countries.
Yes, exactly. So if we have representatives from all of those, but there are only 5 people present, but there are 100 groups of 5 people, it will be very different.
But if you even had like screens from each of them, and anybody could check into what's happening in any of them, and all these could be what we call ecocast, interactively broadcast like this, that means everything is transparent and accountable to anyone who cared to look at any time, and it's recorded and it's archived and it's there. Wouldn't that be a good use of this technology for good governance? And secondly, wouldn't it also mean that a lot of people wouldn't have to actually physically fly in, because they could stay where they were, not increasing the carbon emissions?
Are you sure you're not a member of our organization? Because it really sounds like it. Your idea, of course, is quite wonderful. There are a lot of different ways of using technology creatively to bring people's ideas out and perfect them. What we want is not to suppress conflict, not to avoid it, not to discourage it. What we want is for people to see that a conflict is simply something that isn't working for somebody, and therefore it's an opportunity for improvement.